Welcome to Compass Stories. I'm your host, Veronica Sterling. And my work is centered on helping people who are in the middle of disruption rediscover meaning, strengthen connection, and move forward with courage. I do this through speaking, sharing experiences, and storytelling. I'm grateful that you've joined me for a conversation today. And if it resonates with you, I hope that you will share it with someone else in your life. Thanks for being here. Mary, thank you so much for joining me for a conversation today.
Thanks so much for having me, Veronica. So happy to be here.
I've been looking forward to this conversation. You're just like a light in the world. And so I've just really been looking forward to getting together.
As I'm still inspired by your keynote at
Thank
the
you.
First Responder Conference. Thank you
so much. I felt a lot of pressure on myself for that one. So thank you. I'm glad that it resonated. So Mary, introduce yourself to the listener. What would you like them to know about you?
So I'm Mary Vicario, and I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio, and run Finding Hope Consulting. I spent 8 years as an educator. My bachelor's in elementary education and elementary Montessori. And after 8 years in that field, which was in the early 80s when the crack epidemic was hitting, I was introduced to children who had been found and left for dead in a crack house. And I watched my students know what to do to help them feel safe in my classroom. And I wanted to learn what many of my students just seemed to know in their being. And I wanted to learn how to help these kids heal, not just teach them reading, writing, and arithmetic. And the beauty is, as I became a therapist, which I did for 10 years, then I think I was a supervisor for 15 years or so, then I became a consultant and trainer. As I've been learning and growing along the way, what I have discovered is that teachers, like first responders, are often on the front line. And the healing doesn't have to occur just through therapy. I think it's Bruce Perry who says most of healing occurs outside of therapy, which doesn't mean don't go to therapy, but I want people to know just in your everyday life, you can be someone who changes the world.
I do think that sometimes as adults, we overcomplicate what it takes to connect with people in a meaningful way. Can you walk me through the story you shared with me once about the boy that was in your classroom and was bringing lunch to another student? Just reveal that story to us and tell me what it was like for you when you had that aha moment.
So to not trip myself up, I'm just going to call them Sue and Steve so that they have names. Obviously, those are not their names. Sue was the first young person I received in my second grade classroom who'd been left for dead in a crack house. Sue was 9 years old, had pulled out most of her hair. She was terrified. She only wanted to eat out of a garbage can. And when I got her to the lunchroom, she was completely overwhelmed, and I didn't know what to do with her. So I would sit in the classroom and eat my lunch while she stayed in there because I couldn't get her to the lunchroom. And one day, we'll call him Steve. Steve shows up, and Steve has a lunch tray. And he says, "Do you mind if I put this lunch in the garbage can so Sue can have lunch today?" And I was like, oh my God. I was like, okay. Like, I never would have thought of that in a million years. And Sue ran right over and ate that lunch. He kept coming every day. A few days later, he came with 2 lunches. And I was like, wonder what this is about. And he put one in the garbage can for Sue. And he said, "Is it okay if I stay and eat lunch with Sue? Because she eats alone every day." And so he sat down on the floor, and she's like guarding her food from him. And very calmly, he says, "No one's going to take your food here, but you can guard it as much as you want to." I was just amazed. He gave her permission to do something that would have insulted most of us. I'm not going to take your food. What's wrong with you? Never came out of his mouth.
Mm-hmm.
And so he clearly somehow connected with the depth of her fear and didn't take her actions personally.
Yeah.
So after a few more days, he comes in and he says, you know, Sue, it's really cold sitting here on the floor, so I'm going to put my food on the chair, but you can stay on the floor if you want. And so she does. But a few days later, she's also putting her food on the chair. A few days after that, he says, my rear end's really cold sitting on the floor, Sue, so I'm going to put myself in the chair. I'm going to put the food on the table, but you don't have to.
It's unbelievable.
Unbelievable. Every single time he's telling her, you don't have to. And what I learned in my training many years later is that we truly cannot say yes until we're allowed to say no. And I watched him know that from the core of his being as a 7-year-old child. It was blowing my mind. And that's the day that Sue said, she watched him eat, stayed on the floor and said, why doesn't the white foam come out of your mouth? And he didn't miss a beat. What white foam? Like they're having a conversation. Now I'm over there and I'm starting to tear up. And she says, when we lived with my parents, there wasn't a lot of food, and my little sister and I were really hungry, and there was a white stone on the table, so my sister ate it.
Oh.
Clearly she ate a piece of crack. And she started over time shaking, and white foam was coming out of her mouth. And I told her, if you don't die, we'll never eat from a table again.
Wow.
I am sobbing, and I'm trying very hard not to distract what's happening here, because I know what he's doing is healing for her.
Yeah.
And I hear him say, doesn't miss a beat. This is our safe place. And he points to a sign that was over my desk, because I had made a sign and framed it. This is our safe place. It was one of my first safe places in the world, was my classroom. And I wanted the kids to know that I was bringing that gift to them. And he goes, this is our safe place. If you eat at a table here, no white foam's going to come out of your mouth, because this is our safe place. But you never have to eat at a table here.
Wow.
Over time, she did eat. It took a long time at the table. I don't think I ever got her into a lunchroom that entire year. But you know what? It didn't matter.
Yeah.
Because I got to watch healing occur. Over time, her hair started growing back, and it grows back in little tufts.
Yeah.
Doesn't grow back evenly. And so the girls started bringing in bows to put in her hair and little random.
Wow. Again, the kids knowing how to just keep
once
connecting.
Again,
Yes.
never would have crossed my mind in a million years. Oh my goodness. Just watching those children know what to do in their heart and soul. My friend Danae likes to call it just being human with other humans.
Yeah.
And I was like, I want to go to school and learn how to do this. It was an amazing lesson. That's how I decided to move from teaching to counseling.
Thank you so much for sharing that story. I love when people are doing work or doing things in their life and they know there's a real root cause for the purpose that drives it. And I just find your story to be very inspiring, because the thing is, to me too, Mary, you talk about all of these things that the little boy did, but he knew it was a safe space because you had put that, so like you had created that space too. And so when I hear you tell the story, it's like you are telling it like you're an observer, but you were a part of making that space happen. And I just, I don't know if you always see it that way, but I do. And I think it's
never
wonderful.
have seen it that way, but
well, you should. Take me back to this phrase, we cannot say yes until we are allowed to say no. How does that play out now in our adult life?
Yes.
Explain this to me.
So children or people not in positions of power, I often work with people with developmental disabilities, and I'm shocked at how many adults even don't get to pick out their own outfits. And then I get called in because they're being oppositional defiant. Are you kidding me? What would you do if you couldn't even pick out your own outfit?
Yeah.
If the only way you have any power and control is to say no,
Yeah.
you're going to say no whenever it feels safe to do so,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe even sometimes when it doesn't. And so I've learned over time that a yes that truly doesn't have a no option is just submission. It's not choice. It's submission.
Yeah.
You have to give them the option, because without the option, they're just submitting to you, and that's not healing. Submission isn't healing. That's what they had to do with the perpetrator. And in their being, that's going to feel exactly the same.
Yes.
When we
Yes.
can't give them a choice, then we need to connect the limit with safety,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because that's what's healing and calming. So, for example, I had that sign in my classroom, and I found it also inspired me to phrase things in a certain way that I now call the safety script. So, for example, if someone had a bad day and knocked all the stuff off someone else's desk, I would say, "Hey, Carolyn, this is our safe place." And I point at the sign. I'm going to work really hard that no one knocks the stuff off your desk. So it's really important that we not knock the stuff off someone else's desk. So since this is our safe place, can you help me put John's stuff back on his desk?
Mm-hmm.
Or let's help put John's stuff back on his desk. I have also learned that if we offer someone a yes/no question, and I believe Lou Cozolino, in his book, The Neuroscience of Psychotherapy, talks about this. When we offer someone a yes/no question and their fear center is in charge, they're going to say no, even if they want to say yes. Because the fear center's job is to just slow everything down, just stop it in its tracks in 1/14 millionth of a second. So I found over time that if I invited them to assist me, that ordering them instead of offering them a choice, "Hey, so let's pick up John's stuff and help him get it back on his desk. Let's us do it." It worked much better. So over time, I would hear the kids saying, "Hey, this is our safe place. No one's going to knock over your blocks. Why are you knocking over my blocks? This is our safe place." And over time, the kids started bringing me other children who didn't feel safe in the school for a variety of reasons or didn't feel safe at home. And that was really powerful. I told you this is a safe place. You can tell Miss Mary what happened to you today before school.
Wow.
You can tell Miss Vicario what happens to you on the playground. See, it's our safe place. And they would all point at the sign. Yeah. And I was like, I've got to learn what to do to help children feel safe.
Yes. Wow. That's
I even found a t-shirt. Someone was wearing it once, and so I went to find one, but she had a t-shirt that said, "Felt safety is a human right." And I was like, I want to train in that t-shirt.
Are there things that we can do to help ourselves if the fear is at the center of our thoughts? If we're like stuck and we don't know how to go forward?
I think that feeling itself takes away our language. So it's hard to ask a right question. And I don't know that there is one. And I think you gave a great example of even when you're just feeling it because you're trying to describe it, it gets in the way of words, no less action. I found a book once when I was making a major life change, actually leaving someone I thought I would spend the rest of my life with. And it was a terrifying and major and important life change. But I found a book that said, "Feel the fear and do it anyway." And I found that as I read this book, I couldn't just feel the fear and do it anyway. First, I had to feel the fear and imagine myself doing it anyway. I had to create a picture, a roadmap of all the different ways that this might look, this action of mine, the different steps. And over time, I began to call that 3 Ps. Predict all the things you think are going to happen, and then literally practice it. Now, some people can practice it in their minds. I have a very concrete brain, and I loved drama in high school. And so I literally acted out, which works really great with kids. When I get to work with people with developmental differences, when we act it out, you literally get the feel of what it feels like to open that door, walk out and shut it, and say, "I don't want to come back here again."
Yeah.
And not just imagine it, to actually do it. So practice as concretely as possible. And if you have to just imagine it, bring in as many senses. What might you see when you step out the door? What might you smell? What might it feel like you have the door handle in your hand? All the different things. What might I be wearing? How do I feel in those clothes, etc. And then have a plan B.
Okay.
Because everything you practiced and planned doesn't happen. And that gives us a net, because our fear center doesn't want to try something new without a net. And then I practice all my plan Bs as much as I can as well. So feel the fear and do it anyway. But first you have to imagine it. I invite you to also practice it. And that has really helped me have a different feeling in my being that's allowed me to attempt something new. So whenever I'm training a skill, I will say in training, and we're going to practice it, because your fear center is never going to let you do it in the heat of the moment if we haven't practiced it. It's low stress. And they're like, this isn't low stress. I didn't go to drama camp. What are you doing to me? I know, but truly it's lower stress than when something's coming at you and you have to remember it and try it for the first time.
Yeah. I feel like you're describing like a workaround with this imagination, because my brain is really good at predicting all of the next outcomes, but it's definitely going to prioritize all of the ways I can fail in that list of predictions.
Yes. And our brains are literally designed this way. The optimists literally got eaten for dinner, so their genes did not get passed down. You might outrun that saber-toothed tiger once, but if the second time you still think it's a cute kitty that's not going to hurt you, your genes are not getting passed on. But the people who could experience fear in a fraction of a second and react, their genes got passed on. So we have a natural negativity bias in our brain.
Okay, yeah.
It is genetically encoded into us. And yet we need the positive to have the fuel in the tank to keep going.
Yes, yes. And we get that by imagining that it's real. Yeah.
Yes. I always invite people to imagine, first of all, predict everything you think will happen, because that lets your fear center get all of its worries out. Then predict what you want to happen, because we won't do that naturally without an invitation. And when you predict what you want to happen, then your brain won't miss it in case it does happen. Because when we're so focused on the negative, when what we want to happen happens, oftentimes we don't see it. And it's not because we're flawed. It's because genetically that's how we're designed.
It's like, it ties like right back into that you can't say yes unless you're allowed to say no. So you have to work through all of the negative things and then say, well, what do I want? How can I imagine this other outcome happening?
Mm-hmm. And sometimes just imagining what would no feel like means you don't have to say it. What would no feel like to my boss right now? What would take this job and shove it actually feel like? Feeling it sometimes gives you the ability to not do it in the moment, so that you can look for another job. You can get things done in a order that works for you.
So you can give your actions guardrails by imagine. Okay.
When, Tom Synan, one of my favorite police chiefs to work with, talks about when I do trauma responsive care with my police officers, I say, I'm not giving you an excuse. I did that because I had trauma. He goes, the guardrails are still here.
Yeah.
You still must behave in a certain manner. If that is difficult for you, trauma responsive care means you're going to come in my office and say, hey, this is difficult for me. And we're going to figure out what to do so that your trauma doesn't push you over the guardrails.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I love that, because so often people are like, I don't do trauma informed care because that's like never telling someone no. That's like having no boundaries. I'm like, that is the exact opposite, because felt safety is a human right. And guess what? Limits give us felt safety. It is limits connected with safety. And so he's really clear. The guardrails are here so that we keep the public safe and we keep ourselves safe. You're having trouble with the guardrails because of something that happened to you. I'll help you find help for that. I'm not removing those guardrails for anyone, for any reason.
It
And
sounds
I'm
like
like,
that's his version of the this is a safe space.
yes, and here's how I
Yes.
make it safe. These
Yes.
guardrails are here to make it safe.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, what is trauma informed care?
So uh, this is one of my definitions. First, there's the uninformed care. And the question that goes with uninformed care is, what's wrong with you? And we all say it. So just recognize that when you're saying it, you're like, okay, right now I'm being trauma uninformed. The trauma informed question is, what happened to you?
Okay.
And then what I like to train on is trauma responsiveness, because knowing what happened doesn't help you know what to do. I knew a lot of what happened to Sue, and I still had no idea what to
Mm,
do.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Steve did not know what happened to Sue and knew what to do.
Okay.
So the trauma responsive question is, and what did you do to survive? And that's what Steve knew in the core of his being, that what she was doing was somehow connected with survival. And he didn't need to know the story. He just knew that if you're choosing to eat out of a garbage can instead of going to a cafeteria, that you learned that somewhere
Mm-hmm,
and that kept you alive. And I
mm-hmm.
don't think he knew that in words. I think he knew that in a feeling he
Yeah.
got.
Yeah.
And that's what allowed him to offer her edible food in the only place she knew to get food.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, wow. So that's trauma responsive. I was trauma informed in a way because they informed me of her trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Steve was trauma responsive, being uninformed of her trauma, but being a human who looked at her and said, where would someone learn to eat out of a garbage can?
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
It does. And it's asking the questions without judgment too, it sounds like. Yeah.
Yes. Where would you learn it? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of reminds me of being taught. I was taught by behaviorists. So all behaviors learned. Yes, it is. But then when I wrote my dissertation at a Catholic college on something that called psychological androgyny, which in the early 1980s was paired with actual physical androgyny, which freaked out the people. And I'm like, that's not what it means. But they sent me to the public college to write that thesis. I was getting my master's degree, and they were all Freudian. So they were like, all behavior is purposeful. And the one thing they both agreed on was that all behavior was communication. And so
Yeah.
now I'm like, guess what, guys? Sigmund Freud, and now that we look inside the brain and can see how the brain works, Sigmund Freud and B.F. Skinner were saying the same thing. All behavior is purposeful, all behavior is learned, and all behavior is communication.
Yeah.
And sometimes when I get stuck on what's wrong with you, I remind myself that behavior has a purpose. It was learned somewhere. It's trying to communicate fear in some way to me.
Yeah, that resonates with me. And this is maybe veering a little into an adjacent area, but I do a lot of training on how to communicate with someone who has dementia. I think we trip up because we start just trying to manage the situation and manage what's happening. It crossed my mind a little bit when you were talking about taking away the choice of clothes, like taking away the yes. I say in some of my trainings that what's difficult is people who have dementia don't always communicate with us the way we'd like them to. But they're
Mhm.
behaving in a certain way, and we have to start trying to pay attention to those cues in the environment and piece it together ourselves. But you're making me think that's true in literally every relationship and interaction that we have in our life. That if we are trying to connect with someone and they are behaving in a way that feels like a disconnect, that is also communicating something to us.
What is it? Maureen Walker says she's a relational cultural therapist and relational cultural theorist. She says, strategies for disconnection are an intense drive for connection in an atmosphere of fear. When you notice someone doing something that would make people disconnect from them, that what they really want is connection, but they're absolutely terrified. And I'm like, yes, because everything, I'm going to do with neuroscience now, has to go through our fear center first.
Yeah. Okay.
So, and if our fear center in 1/14 millionth of a second can't decide that it's totally safe, it will assume that it's unsafe, and it'll stop you in your tracks and make you push away.
And you'll disconnect.
You'll disconnect.
Okay.
Yes. I sometimes call it the anger onion. So before we could see inside the brain, we thought anger was a primary emotion because it's so obvious. You can't miss it when someone's angry.
Yeah.
Really, it's an outer shell, and underneath anger is sadness, and underneath sadness is fear. And what's driving the behavior is fear. So if we can put in our intervention at the level of fear, we can address the sadness and tone down the anger. But if you're just trying to stop the anger, you're going to keep getting pushed away like it's a force field.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have to identify the fear.
To get the actual, yeah.
Yes. Let's go back to Steve for a moment. He may not have known the precise fear, but he knew she was afraid.
Yeah.
And when you're afraid, and someone tells you you have to eat in the cafeteria, so he kept saying, and you don't have to do this. That was a child who understood fear.
Okay, so I have like 8 million pages of notes now, which seems to happen when I talk to you. And I am a synthesizer.
Yes! I noticed that the last time we talked, I got so excited. I love synthesizers.
Okay, so let me see if I'm making a connection in some of these lessons. If a strategy for disconnection is a
Is an
desperate...
intense yearning for connection. That's the quote. The strategy for disconnection is an intense yearning for connection in an atmosphere of fear.
Okay. So if I am normal, we are all normal for having that fear because that's how our brain is made. So
in our body.
It's not, we're not the problem.
No. No. The people who didn't have fear did not get their genes passed.
They did not make it. They were eaten by the tigers.
That's right.
So if we are the person who is in that state of disconnection and we're desperate to connect, and I'm gonna kind of use that connection sort of loosely here. If we're desperate to make the connection with the relationship or make the connection with the life change or the step forward, then we can use the predict, practice, and plan B. We can imagine what that connection is and we can work our way to it.
Yes.
If we are the person who is trying to help with the connection.
Yes.
We don't show up with judgment and say, what's wrong with you? Just do the thing, say the thing, make it happen. We don't say that. But we work to create a safe space and we help them see that they're allowed to say no to the change. But maybe we want to also inspire them to consider what the yes is, to kind of give them that boost.
Invite them to imagine what it might feel like.
Yeah, and I like that word invite because anything else would be going back to the judging, the symptom management, the fear provoking. Just do it. Why won't you just do it? Just I can see it. Why can't you?
And shame, can you hear the shame that comes from why don't you just do it? I would do it. What's wrong with you? You can hear the shame producing words there, and shame releases cortisol. Cortisol blocks your dopamine receptors. Without dopamine, you can't learn. So they're literally learning nothing. So that's like something we discovered back in the day when we thought we had to, push people to rock bottom. And now we know that shame, which is different than guilt. Guilt is I made a mistake.
Shame as I
Shame,
am the mistake.
I am the mistake. Yes. And this research behind that is the work of Judith Jordan. And then Brene Brown has made it very famous with that statement. But when we're saying what's wrong with you, that's shame. When we're saying things that make people, I would just do it. Why can't you just do it? Just do it.
Uh-huh.
Apologies to Nike. You have to imagine it before you can just do it. Then when I'm in a situation where I absolutely know I cannot say no, I sometimes get through the yes, but then make sure I find there's some place in my life where I can have a choice. So for example, when I'm in training, I'm also a synthesizer. And the ideas, I think in pictures too, so the ideas are just, they're flooding me. And I have to have a way to organize them. So I have little tiny square Post-it notes and a highlighter. And I'll write something, I'll highlight it, I'll get the right color Post-it note for each thing that I know they represent, and I'll put the Post-it note there. Now, to find my Post-it notes, I put them in rainbow order, because then I'm not looking, where's the red today? But it looks very compulsive because I line them up in a straight line, all my stuff out. Dan Siegel said, did you know that if every time you put those Post-it notes in a perfectly straight line in rainbow order, you said, I can't control blank, but I can control my Post-it notes, it'll decrease your drive to put those Post-it notes in a perfectly straight line in rainbow. Like, oh my God. So now whenever I set out my Post-it notes, I'm like, I can't control child abuse, but I can control what order. So whenever I find myself doing something compulsive, I hear Dan Siegel saying that. Because of course I was in the front row of the Dan Siegel training too, because I'm a total nerd. So I'm like, oh my God, that was a life-changing little tidbit he gave me. So then find something you can control, notice it. And when you pair it with, I can't control that they just changed the way I have to evaluate my team, and I can control how I put these dishes in the dishwasher.
Okay.
It becomes less of a compulsive drive that you're doing mindlessly, that you lose your mind over when someone does it differently, and more of, this is a gift I can give myself. I can put these in the order I want them in because there are so many things in my life I can't control. And I found that when I do that, I can be more creative. I'm like, maybe I have to evaluate my team this way. How else can I build them up so that when this comes, I've got lots of ways I've built them up so we can calm the fear center.
In my own life, the phrase that I use is, it's okay to let my give a damn break a little. I just have to make sure it breaks in the right place.
I love that. Yeah.
Like, I gotta keep the important, and that reminds me, like, what are the important things? And
I love that. My give a damn break just has to break in a better place.
yes.
Yes. In the safest place.
In the safest place, yes.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And when I know why I'm loading the dishwasher this way, then it doesn't become the end of the world when someone else loads it differently. I can
Yes.
just go find something else.
Mary, I feel like I am just barely scratching the surface of what you know and what you could teach me in the space of this conversation. So I'm going to ask you, what is the part of your work that you're most passionate about, that is the message that you would want people to hear anytime they had a chance to hear from you?
Our brain can change and heal literally till the day we die. And that resilience is adaptation, not bouncing back. So Sue had to adapt to living in hell literally the first 9 years of her life. And the courage and creativity and synthesizing it took for her to adapt to learn how to eat out of a garbage can so she could have food and not eat things on a table so that she didn't die, even when she didn't know why that mattered. That same courage and adaptability and ability to synthesize, she can now use to create the life she wants instead of just recreating where she came from. That is fuel. We already know she can adapt. Now, how do we help her adapt in ways that create what she wants? Part of that is helping her imagine what it could be like. What might it feel like for Steve to invite one friend or for you to invite one friend? And the behaviorists would call that successive approximations. So yes, there's science behind it. And if you're human, being with other humans, that's exactly what Steve was doing for Sue.
Wow.
First, I'm just going to give her the food and see if she eats it. Then I'm going to give her the food and see if she'll let me eat near her. Then I'm going to move the food to the chair. Then I'm going to move the food to the table.
Mm-hmm.
And he did it all with dignity. Not once asking what's wrong with this girl who's eating out of a garbage can at 9 years old.
Yeah. Never shame. He never stopped her ability to learn. Do you see then in your work, if resilience is adapting, that what you were learning as a teacher then adapted the work that you do over time? Like,
yes,
yeah.
It did. And then as I learned, so I will say when I'm in training, I'm never going to give you bad news without giving you good news. So I'm not going to tell you what trauma does to the brain if I can't tell you what to do about it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to tell you what, being exposed to substances in utero does to the brain if I can't tell you what to do about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I always make sure I study the neuroscience of trauma and the neuroscience of resilience, because they are both, they're opposite sides of the same coin.
A few weeks ago, I had a conversation with Matthew Gellin on the podcast, and he's the CEO of American Legacy Theater, and one of their programs is also working with children, and they have these programs that are like improving kindergarten readiness at these like astronomical rates. But he had a phrase in that conversation. He said, once you've imagined it, you have proven that it's possible. The only thing that matters now is what we do about it. And it's like you are offering the answer to like what to do next, because when you get even like one little part of it, you're showing yourself that you can keep adapting and you just keep going.
I also think American Legacy Theater is allowing them to practice what they're imagining.
Yes.
That's what theater's all about.
Yes.
Embodying someone else.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. This conversation today has connected dots from past conversations that I've had. So yeah, you are a very good teacher. I knew that before we had this conversation.
You're very kind. And you are a powerful synthesizer. I mean, you're like doing it in the moment. I'm like, that was awesome. Thank you for welcoming so many people to this podcast and then offering it to us so you're not the only person learning.
Thank you. And I love it when other people say, oh, that dot connected here with that conversation there. So yeah, yes. I love it.
Yes. And if people want some free resources, they can find them on my website, findinghopeconsulting.com. We have lots of free resources. We've been blessed with many grants over the past almost 15 years now. And I love when I get grants to make products that I can then just offer for free.
Findinghopeconsulting.com. I'm going to make sure that that's also listed in the show notes so everyone will know where to find you. Thank you. This was just a wonderful conversation. Like I said, you are just such a light when you're in the room. Thank you so much for sharing this with me today.
Thank you again. It was wonderful. You inspired me.
Thank you. Bye-bye, Mary. Thank you for listening to this episode of Compass Stories. I'm your host, Veronica Sterling. And if you've enjoyed this, please subscribe to hear more and share it with others. Thank you for doing so. That's really helpful for me. To learn more about my message and connect, you can find me at www.veronicasterling.com.